Hi, Redeemer. For this week's FAQ, I want to tackle the question why plant churches? Uh, if you've been around different churches, you know not all churches plant churches. In fact, the majority of churches do not plant churches. Redeemer, slash formerly known as Imago Christi, has been in the business of church planting from the beginning. Imago Christi was a church plant 12 or so years ago by Richard Marceau and a team of people. And the Cedar Falls campus itself was a church plant by Brooks Haynes and a team of people called Cayo Church. And then those two churches merged. And from the beginning, we've had a passion for church planting. And that has meant partnership with other church planting networks, prayer, training, and funding for other church planters, and even sending out church planters from our own congregation, right? We've sent people to Des Moines, and they've in turn sent people to Clinton, and we're on the verge of sending some people to Denver. So why do that? And I guess right, and there's a lot of angles to come at this, which is you can get into how it's strategically fruitful and all these things, but at the end of the day, it's really, I would argue, it's just not actually optional. If you read the book of Acts, what's happening is the planting of churches. And you might think, well, that's because there were no churches. That's true. But it's literally what God did. When he says, I'm going to extend my glory through the end of the earth, well, how's that going to happen? I'm going to plant churches. And then what you see is that once a church is planted, it's not it. They continue to send others out, right? So it's churches that plant churches. And so you really have this mechanism of the church, which, is outward focused in the start of new churches. So there's a lot going on in the local church. They're gathering, they're preaching, they're teaching, they're caring for one another. They're, reaching out to their city and their neighbors and sharing the gospel. But there's also this, I would call it the apostolic element, which is to be an apostle means to be sent. There's these people that are sent out to plow new ground and start new works. That's a feature of the local church in Acts. And over the years, I guess probably what has happened over the centuries is that as the West has become highly Christianized, we've kind of lost that sense of that need. Some of that was rekindled globally. In the last few hundred years, we started sending apostles overseas to reach the nations and plant churches. But I think what we see now is that there's also a need for more churches as the West becomes less and less Christianized. The reality is that a lot of churches are in decline. The reality is that entire denominations are in decline, that more and more people around us are not Christianized or certainly Christian. And so we're going to do what the local church does, which is reach out, make disciples, take care of our flock, teach, train, but also participate in that key element of church planting. God brings those type of people to your church, and we have the responsibility to recognize that, encourage them, train them, help fund them, and send them, because God's going to plant churches anyway. And so we might as well be involved in that. It's a great work. There's certainly cost to it. We'd lose, strong team members when we do that. But the way I look at it is they're going to go anyway. So they can either go away mad or they can go away glad because we helped them. So anyway, if you have questions about that, and maybe God is stirring in your heart to be a church planter or to be part of a church planting team, wow, some serious wind. Worried about some more trees coming down back here. Anyway, I'd love to hear your heart for that, or even just anything you want to talk about. All right, see you later.